Chip Leer. Wildside.
The walleye tournament season is coming to a close for 2020, our condensed season at that. And we are just a couple of weeks away from our championship, and it's proving to be a pretty exciting one. End of the season, October, big fish, Lake Erie. But you know what? There's more at stake than just that championship. Inside that race, the race within the race, is the coveted Angler of the Year race. And I can tell you right now, from behind the stage, that is absolutely everything when it comes to these professional anglers on the National Walleye Tour. Today's podcast is about just that. We've got two-time Angler of the Year winner, Robert Blosser, joining us today, along with my good friend, John Balla. And we're going to talk about what it feels like to win Angler of the Year, what the emotions, the roller coaster throughout the entire season, the good days with the bad days, and how that affects your decision-making on the water. We're also going to dive into statistically. John's going to explain what it takes to win Angler of the Year and the mentality that an angler might want to have to achieve that someday. So it's a really interesting dissection of what I think is the coolest award in tournament walleye fishing, the Angler of the Year on the National Walleye Tour. Before we get there, I'm going to ask you, drop down here, hit the subscribe button so you can make sure that you never miss one of these podcasts. And also, you might want to stop by the chipleer.com website. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter because we're emailing information and blogs and things to you there as well. We'd love to have you part of the Wildside family. So right now, sit back and enjoy two-time Angler of the Year, Robert Blosser, along with my friend John Balla. We pick apart the 2020 Angler of the Year race. Welcome aboard, everybody. Glad to have you here, and sitting live with of course, our two-time Angler of the Year on the National Walleye Tour, Robert Blosser. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Chip.
And of course, our walleye guru stat extraordinaire, Mr. John Balla, just shakes his head.
Yeah. Hey, Chip, what's going on? Hey, Robert, good to see you. Welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, here we are. We're right on the cusp of the 2020 championship on Lake Erie out of Huron, Ohio. And Robert, as you know, it's coming down the home stretch for the Angler of the Year race. This is when, I mean, it really comes to a head. Right? You've been here twice before. Is this something you're thinking about going into this event? Or are you only thinking about this event? Or run me through what's going through your mind at this moment.
You know, if I were in the running this year, I would most definitely be thinking about it, right? Unfortunately, I stubbed my toe at the first event, so I'm not in the running. I am looking forward to fishing the championship, though, and the nice thing is I've got no pressure going into this event. I can fish to win. However, these guys, when I look today, I'm going to say the top 6 to top 8 guys have a shot at this, and it's kind of opened up to those guys. Now, obviously, Corey being at the top has a good position and a good reputation out at Erie as well. So I'm kind of looking at him to be the front runner here, and hopefully he finally locks down his first one because, man, he deserves it, right? He's been so close so many times. He's a phenomenal fisherman. He deserves that title. However, there are a couple guys right behind him within a few points that are phenomenal fishermen out east, and that's where we're headed, right? We're headed to Lake Erie, but my gut tells me we're going to be fishing east of where we take off from, and some of these guys right behind Corey are from that area and have a lot of experience in that area.
Before we get into exactly how all that makeup comes together, the thing that I'm always interested in, because off stage, everybody's talking about Angler of the Year, Angler of the Year. I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of talk about Angler of the Year, Angler of the Year. It certainly isn't a financial windfall to win the Angler of the Year race. However, there's a lot of respect that comes along with that title amongst the peers. So what does that What does that feel like for you? I mean, what was that like the first time? What was it like the second time?
You know, you alluded to it. It's not a huge financial gain, right? But it does cement your place in history. And it does prove to your peers that I am worthy of this title, right? And especially to do it 2 times in the NWT for myself. Man, I am so fortunate and so blessed to have that happen to me. But whoever wins that year in and year out truly deserved it. We only fish 4 events that make up the Angler of the Year race for total points. You cannot falter one time, and I'm sure John's got the stats. If I had to guess, it's going to be somewhere in almost maintaining a top 12 to a top 13 average at every event. It's stupid good. So the guy that wins that, yeah, he was definitely the best angler that year. And for these guys coming in, if they're going to tell you that they're not thinking about it and they're just going fishing, that's not true, man. Being there before, that's all you're thinking about. And that consumes every minute of your day leading up to the event. And it pretty much consumes all the time you should be sleeping, but you're not because you're thinking about it.
So earlier you said you stubbed your toe on the first event, right? So those years that you eventually won the title, when did it start setting in that, you know, I've got a shot? Is it day 1 of the first tournament? Is it day 2 of the second that you've got some decent finishes, that you're in the top 10, top 20 maybe? When along that season does it really start getting to inside your head like, all right, I've got a shot at this. I kind of know what I need to do. Or do you even know what you need going into the season? Do you guys talk about that stuff amongst your teammates,
Sure.
your traveling partner, so to speak?
Yeah. When does it come into your mind? After day 1 of the first event. You know, when you finish well after day 1 and you're setting yourself up going into good position for day 2, it creeps into everybody's mind that does this, right? That fishes the entire circuit. That's when it first hits your brain. Yes, you think about it in the off season. It's something you're striving for, but realistically, it's not on your mind before the first day of the first event is even over. So when you come out of the gates and you have a good day 1 at the first event, that's when it starts creeping in, right? You have a good day 2 and have a good first overall event. Now it's there. Now we got to roll into the second one. Kind of not a bad position to be in is kind of where I'm at this year, right? Came out of the blocks horrible. It was a train wreck from day 1. That allowed me to fish completely freely going into the second, third events, knowing I can almost treat these as championships. Angler of the Year race is out of the question, and now I can just fish to win. Obviously, I haven't won yet, but I had a couple really good opportunities, just didn't make the right decisions on day 2. But so it's really 2 different mindsets. It's either you're all in on the Angler of the Year race, or that's completely thrown out the window and you're all in on winning that event.
So is that, when you say fishing to win, I mean, is it a kind of a mentality like, and I'm using baseball as an analogy right now because we're at playoff time, but where you step in the box and you're not even thinking about just getting a bloop out of the infield and getting to first base. The only thing you're swinging for is the fence. So every spot, every decision, every thought is I'm not just trying to get on base and get around. I'm either going, I'm all in or out.
Yes, absolutely. Right. You're still looking to fish clean and fish respectably, but you're not looking to finish in the middle of the pack, right? That's going to do you no good. Neither is finishing at the bottom of the pack. But if you're going to weigh the odds out and say 6 times out of 10, I'm going to finish at the bottom, but those other 4 times I'm not going to win, but I may put myself in a good position to win. That's what I'm looking to do, right? I'm looking to just give those odds, those few odds in my favor. If it's an extra 3, 4, 5% in my favor, that's great, right? I'll take it because every little bit counts. But these guys, when you start fishing for Angler of the Year, you fish with a different mindset. Yes, you're still looking to do well in the tournament, but you may not be taking some of the chances or gambles you normally would to win the event because you're looking for that solid, consistent finish. And it may be not making a long run. It may be boxing an inch shorter fish than what you think you need to win, but you can catch those comfortably and you know you're going to have a solid finish. So there's definitely two different mentalities that go into the whole thing.
So what's the reward here? I mean, is the reward, did you, in your relationship with the partners, promotional partners and sponsors that you have, did this mean something to them to help your stock?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody who says it doesn't isn't telling the truth, right? Yamaha, for example, is a huge fan of Angler of the Year titles, whether it be bass, walleye, redfish, saltwater, right? But again, it just cements your place and shows that you're maybe not the cherry picker who jumped in and won a tournament. You're a guy who lived the trials and tribulations of the year-long circuit and came out on top as number one. You may not have won them all. You might not even have won one of the events, but you were the most consistent fisherman. And it's not just those few days of competition. It's the pre-fish, it's the travel, it's all the logistics that go into it that all have to come together, right? And it's all got to work out for you that many times in a row to finish out on top at the end.
Is there any newcomers that are sticking out in your mind? I know that myself, one of the things that I look at in these Angler of the Year races is I see a name that I haven't seen before, and people rise, the cream comes to the top. You're like, I haven't been paying attention to this person, but they're finding themselves right in the running. I better start paying attention because they're doing a lot of things right.
And if I could add to that, Chip, and what kind of things are they going to be thinking about? What are they going to be feeling going into this? Are they going to be freaking out about it? Like, oh my God, I put a lot of pressure on themselves. So what is that, first time being exposed to the chance of winning Angler of the Year? What are guys thinking about? Or what's stopping them from being really successful, and what's helping them be successful, I guess?
Unfortunately, it would be nice to be able to turn a switch off in our brains, right? And just say, I don't want this influencing any of my decisions. I don't even want it on my mind. That's not possible. We're all human, right? So I guarantee you everybody is thinking that's in this race. Yes, this is good for my stock, as you say, Chip. This is going to help me with endorsements in the future. This is going to solidify current endorsements. It's going to help just with the entire PR and recognition of your brand. So to say it's not on their mind, it's on all of their minds. And I guarantee some of them are hungrier than others for it because they've tasted it. They've been so close so many times that I don't know if it's becoming a driving factor or a hindrance, so that can kind of go both ways as well. But for these guys coming into pre-fish, most of them, I think, are going to try to lock up good bags of fish and figure out what they have to do to have a top 15 finish, right? I think any one of us, you say, hey, you want to finish 15th coming into an event of this caliber of fishermen, most of us are probably day in and day out going to say yes, right? That's a respectable finish. But for some of these guys that are, in that 6th, 7th, 8th position in the points race right now, they're almost going to have to look to try to win this event. And those are the couple guys that might really have to go for it or try to take unusual chances that wouldn't just give them that good finish, because that's probably what the guys with a lot of points are going to do. That would be my tactic anyway, or what I would look at doing coming into this if I was in first, second, or third leading the points race.
So are there some names of the newer guys, like Chip was saying, that kind of come to mind?
Dylan, right? Dylan's become a force. Dylan's a phenomenal fisherman. Started when he won Devil's Lake. Didn't know who he was until he busted that thing wide open and got talking to him afterwards. Congratulated him. Said, hey, man, you unlocked something really cool here. Did a great job. And we've exchanged words quite a few times since then. But the kid's got it, right? He gets it upstairs and he understands fish. Not just how to catch them, but he understands them as a whole, and that's what makes them dangerous.
John, why don't you run us through where we're at here with the field, and we'll get a little insight from Robert on how you feel about this field. And you talked about who wants it. Who wants it?
Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Good. All right. So there's our stats right now. We can see. If you're listening on audio, Corey Springo's leading the race. He's got 552 points. Second place, David Kolb. Third, John Hoyer. Fourth, Peter Schaefer. first full year on the tour. Mike Defenbaugh is in 5th. Scott Gitke's in 6th. That's separated. All those guys are separated by 17 points. Dylan Nussbaum, we just mentioned there in 7th. Tommy Kimos has gone from 1st to 8th and now 34 points behind after this last event. Jacob L., 34, tied with Tommy Kimos. Bill Shimoda, Brandon Ruffalo, and 12th place Dusty Minky, 54 points back. So, Robert, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go with my gut and say Corey finally locks one up, right? I think he's going to fish well enough to secure this. The only scary thing is David Kolb, very, very talented big water fisherman, right? There's the dark horse in this. Then you get to Hoyer. The guy's great. Dude can just flat out get it done. I look at John's got to make up 5 points. So in my mind, if I'm John, I'm almost thinking I have to have a top 5 or better finish, because I'm going to assume that Kolb and Corey are both in the top 10. Now,
that would be awesome if all 3 of those guys are in the top 10.
You know, it's a very realistic possibility, right? With the way these guys have been fishing, and then you throw Kolb in there with his experience there. Those 3 in the top 10 is very realistic. Dylan, once again, that's kind of his home water. We're playing on his turf a little bit. He does have a lot of ground to make up. So 23 points, that's big. He's got to really go for it. Kimos, unfortunately, he was in the driver's seat and just stumbled a little bit. It's going to be really tough to make up 34 points, especially with the guys ahead of him. You know, he's got to take first, and all of those guys have to finish 35th or worse to have it happen. I don't see that happening, unfortunately. Tommy's already won one and proven he's a great angler. And then you look at, like, Bill Shimoda, another phenomenal angler, 36 points. I think that's just too much to overcome. And then, as you mentioned, some up-and-comers, Brandon Ruffalo. This kid has just been consistent all year, not really shaking the top, but he is right there, right outside the top 10 every time. Fished against his dad years and years ago, so I know the pedigree is there, right? I know he's been taught well, and I would expect to see good things from him in the upcoming years.
What about Defenbaugh?
Defenbaugh's sneaky good, right? Another Lake Erie guy.
Yeah, and he has 5 top 10s and only 14 NWT events.
So doing something right, obviously. And once again, putting it in his home water, that's another dark horse. However, 16 points again, right? We got to look at the 16 points, and we got to look at the guys ahead of him. So even if he wins the event, everybody above him has to finish 16th or worse.
Yep.
So is it doable? Yes, obviously. Is it probable? If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, and Peter Schaefer, of course, he's had a really good year. He's coming off of a win 2 events ago, and he's from that neck of the woods, Michigan. I don't know how often he gets out on the Erie, but that would be another one of those young names, or I guess rookie names, so to speak, to the NWT. That would be a neat little story as well, too. So another guy that's on fire, and another guy up at the Sault Ste. Marie tournament that made a long run, right? And it paid off for him. But if you look at his finishes over the year, he's sneaky good as well, too. Now, as you said, he's from Michigan. Don't know how often he gets down there. But I'm going to really lean on one of those top 3 guys winning this event, just because of the point separation. I do want to make a note. The tiebreaker, back when you and Corey tied the first year, what was the tiebreaker back then?
The tiebreaker was largest one-day bag.
And they've changed that now, because right now Corey owns a tiebreaker, because I believe the first tiebreaker is total weight, correct?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
I'm pretty sure they changed it to total weight, and then the number of fish, and then the number of live fish.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they've done. So Corey owns the tiebreaker in the event that there is a points tie at the end. I wanted to make a note of that too, because that's a pretty good position to be in first and own the tiebreaker.
Sure.
So what is any words of advice for these guys as they come into this as a two-time Angler of the Year champion? Any words of advice here before we let you go?
Trust your gut, man. You know, it got you here. Keep going with it. Don't put it to the side. Win, lose, or draw. Maybe you have a horrible event, but don't go home saying, I should have just trusted myself. That's the worst thing you can do. At least if you leave it all out there and trust yourself and go with it, you can usually live with that at the end of the day. It's when you deviate from what you think you should be doing and you flop, that haunts you forever, because you just sit there and constantly remind yourself, if I would have just trusted myself, if I would have just went with my gut. And that's probably the biggest one. That way there's no regrets.
All right, Robert, thank you for your time today. I'm gonna let you go, and then John and I are gonna hash away at some data points over the Angler of the Year race and other things on the National Walleye Tour. But we appreciate your expertise, your input. Congratulations on 2 Angler of the Year, and you got a shot at 3 next year.
Yeah, we'll shoot for next year. Hey, appreciate being on. You guys be safe, and we'll see you soon.
See you, Robert.
Good luck.
So, John, if you want to clear that screen there, we're gonna knock that down real quick here. But my question that I have for you is, when Robert talked there, I mean, is that not talking like an Angler of the Year when he says trust your gut? Just trust your gut. I mean, veteran anglers that continually do well on tour, they're moving it from up here down here and just going, and it's all natural.
It takes experience to make statements like that, right? It takes experience. It takes trial and error. It takes failing at other times, saying, oh, I'm just going to go on this whim here without really trusting my gut because I saw these guys here, or I heard this at the dock and I'm doing it because of that.
Yeah.
It took experiences like that to give him the confidence that that's not the way he wants to do it. He's got to go back, and as he reflects on these tournaments, his success, he's going to go, boy, I trusted myself in this one, and that's why it came out that way. And he's able to trust himself every tournament, and then chips fall where they may, but he knows that that's what you've got to do. You fish your strengths, you trust what your gut's telling you, your experience, your knowledge, how to figure out patterns and fish timing and movements, and just go with it. So, yeah, that's a very veteran statement.
The other thing that I loved what he said was he pointed out the fact that, yes, Angler of the Year wins, complimentary entry fees for the next season, and that's, it's a nice stipend. But the real reward is your relationships with the companies that can ensure that you have the funding to continue to fight to fish tournaments for years to come, and their recognition and how they use that.
Yeah, I know, he referenced Yamaha because I remember a few years ago, I think after he won it, and Brandon Palaniuk was also the Angler of the Year on the Elite Series, they brought both of them to the Yamaha headquarters and celebrated their victories. Now, that's pretty cool when the walleye guy can sit alongside the bass guy and be revered and, taken out and spoiled and whatever down there. That was cool.
Well, he should be. I mean, while we're a niche market, okay, we're not bass, we're not the largest, spectator arena in fishing. That's a fact. But our core is loyal. We love the sport. We're regionalized to a point. But don't forget, I mean, the anglers that are fishing the National Walleye Tour, it's as good a tournament angler as you can find in the country. There are specifically really good anglers on individual bodies of water. But overall, from reservoir to river to Great Lake and Natural Lake, these guys can continually get it done. And that's where, for a guy like Robert to win this thing twice, that's saying something in terms of angling ability.
Yeah, he won it on, I think, reservoirs, rivers, and the Great Lakes. And I think both times he won it. So that's as diverse as it gets. One, rod in hand, jigging, rigging, and then you've got trolling boards and casting. I mean, that's as diverse as it gets. Current, natural lakes or reservoirs, flowages, and then you've got the open water trolling, which is just, that's all, can be a needle in a haystack kind of thing, but he's obviously able to tune in certain patterns and places that he knows he can be consistent. So yeah, it's certainly, when you win Angler of the Year on National Walleye Tour, you absolutely 100% deserve it.
So do you agree with his assessment on who, when, where has got a shot here, or what are you thinking when you look at this race?
Yeah, should we take a look at some numbers? Should we
Yes,
take a look at
I
some
want to
stats?
know what you're thinking.
Let's get into, so we took a look already at let me share my screen here again. We took a look at let me get a little drawing device here and have some fun with this. We took a look at this already, right? And he mentioned a couple of things that I'm going to point to here in a little bit about the top three. But he also said early in his talk about the top 6 or 7 guys. And I want you to make a note of this. So 17 points back is the guy in 6th.
Scott Getke.
If we go, well, now I got to get rid of the drawing thing. Is that what I'm going to do? Okay.
You can color on the tab, but it doesn't poke it.
It won't let me go to it won't let me. I got to clear it first. Oh, maybe I got to stop the annotation. There we go. This is what I got to do. All right. Okay. So let's go into the averages, and let me pump it up here a little bit. Whoops. Hang on.
We're good.
Let's pump it up a little bit here. So you can see, can you see that a little bit easier now?
Yep.
So this is the average. These are the averages of the past 7 years. Average to win Angler of the Year on the NWT. Blosser won it in 13. He also won it in 17 with the first and the third most points. He talked about average finish of about 12th. That was the best. Colors here in red are the best. That's a 12th finish per event in 4 events, which is almost a top 10 finish in 4 events. Incredible.
11.8.
11.8. And the worst, I shouldn't say the worst, the lowest was 22nd place by Chemos in 14.
21.8.
In 717. But the average is down here. It's about 743 to win it. Average finish about 15. And that's about 185 points per event. But as we look at that, we got to clear this again. We got to stop the drawing again. Let's check out the number of where guys came from after 3 events, Chip. This was interesting when I took a look at this. So Robert mentioned the top 3 guys, right?
Right.
Nobody.
Oh my word, look at that.
Nobody has come from below 3rd place to win Angler of the Year. Ever.
Wow.
Stokowski did it. He was 17 points down, right?
Wow.
He did it last year. The most ever to come back was 20 points down.
That's a long, 20 points is a massive comeback.
Is a massive comeback. So there's no way you can't really come up or extrapolate any kind of, depending on where you are in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, you have a chance to win it. Because it all depends on the guys above you and what they do. Because if you look, 19 or 20 points behind, and he's in 3rd place, that means there's a lot of room for guys behind him to do well. And the top 2 guys have to flop. Or not flop, but not do that. He's got to finish 20 points behind him.
Yeah.
So, but what I want to say is, okay, even though we haven't had anybody finish outside of the top 3, but you got to remember, when we first looked at this, 17 points behind. The most someone's come back has been 20 points. So 17 points where Geiki's at, based on historicals, is still within reach. It's just going to take a little bit more work for those guys, or lack of work for the guys above him, for him to come out on top based on the numbers. So, like Robert was saying, you've got Sprangle, who's done really, really well in the Angler of the Year. His best finish was 2nd. You've got Kolb, who's a Lake Erie guy. His best season, he's only fished 1 full season. It was 26th. Hoyer, his best Angler of the Year finish was 7th. So, those are some guys that have been there before, have kind of been in the conversation before. I know Corey's had a pretty decent history on the National Walleye Tour on Lake Erie. Hoyer, I think, has only fished 1 event on Erie and National Walleye Tour. I don't know his history there. But Kolb has had tremendous success out there. And I don't know if we wanted to look at some of that stuff or not.
Well, let's bring back up the standings one more time here, because I want to run right through what you just did there. So we got Springle leading, best ever in second. Kolb, Great Lakes, a quote unquote expert, right? I mean, that's his rolling is his deal.
Well, Lake Erie specifically too.
Yes, we're going to come back. We'll come back to him. But Hoyer's been hot as hot gets.
Hoyer is one place away from cashing 6 checks in a row. He missed 1 check this year by 1 place. That would have been his 6th in a row. He would have 6 in a row after the last event. So yeah, probably in the last 6 events, no one's had a better average finish. In fact, over the last 3 years, I think Sprangle and Hoyer are 1 and 2 in the best in their average finish over the last 2 years. And third, believe it or not, is Chemos. So yeah, and he's unfortunately, he stubbed his toe in that last event, but. Yeah, so first and third are the 2 hottest anglers over the last 3 years, for sure.
And it's hard to argue with momentum. Schaefer's got it figured out. He's obviously fishing gut-wise, went to reservoir, never been there before. But I don't want to say he made it look easy, but he adjusted to not a necessarily easy environment relatively quickly. So it shows that he's got the ability to think on his feet and fish on his feet. Deffenbaugh, I don't know how you. I mean, my gosh, this is his water, and he's only 16 back.
Like I said, he has the best top 10 percentage out of anybody in the National Walleye Tour that's fished 14 events or more. He's got 5 top 10s in 14 events, including a win at Lake Erie back a few years ago. So, if any guy out of these, the top 6 are licking his chops, to me, it's Deffenbaugh. He lives right over there. He's had success in the National Walleye Tour alone. So he's got 2 top 10s in a row coming into this event. So he's got some tremendous momentum. So there's quite a few storylines here in the top 6, quite a few of them. Geike is friends with Kolb. And Geike, I think, has had some success in the MWC on Lake Erie.
Absolutely. And he's he's been around tournaments a long time. He knows how to get it done. He was so close at our last event there. So what, you had some information on Kolb you wanted to review?
Yeah, let's see if I can.
And I think you were basically in our pregame talk. You were basically just talking about the fact that David was exceptionally effective on big open water events. If I remember the conversation correctly.
Let me bring up a few of his. That one. Okay, hang on 1 second. Let me see if we can share this. Can you see that? It might be a little light, but can you see it?
Yep, it's a little light, but we got it. We can just talk it through.
Let me try to bring it up a little bit larger. So this is, going back all the way to 2003. He won the FLW Walleye Tour on Lake Erie with 152 pounds in 4 days. Okay? He won a
that's
5th at a Walleye League on Lake Erie in May. In the Tour Championship in 2007, this is of note, 2007, he took 6th place. Dustin Sheldon won that event. This was in September, the closest thing we've got to an October NWT championship. He took 6th. So he's had multiple top 10s. Now this is the top half of his top 10s on the FLW. He took 3rd here in 2012 at Lake Erie. He took 3rd in a league event on Lake Erie. So you can see he's got, is that 6 top 10s, including a win on Lake Erie events. Only one in the fall, but it just tells you that he's got an understanding of what's going on the trolling bite and the fish migration on Lake Erie for sure.
And we're going to see some big weights. I mean, those indication of what we're seeing in some of those fall weights. These fish are bulking up again, and they're going to be big.
No, there's no question. There's no question. They're out. They start traveling from west to east in the spring and the summer, and then they go out east and they start heading their way back, and they start hugging that shoreline from Cleveland all the way up into Sandusky, Huron, Lorraine, Avon, all that stuff. And so Could be some guys making really long runs. There could be some guys going out really over some deep water if the fish are still deep. You know, you've heard dipsies or lead core, and there might be some guys finding something on some of those port areas. Like I said, like Huron and Lorraine already. They could be in that area as well. So, yeah, it should be big, giant fish, 3 days. As you always say, if they're giving away, 2 boats on the pro side and 1 on the co side?
Yeah, 3 Ranger boats at this event. And I think there's 59 who qualify. I don't know how many are going to fish. Well, obviously, on this very same podcast, we'll dive in. We'll get a couple of anglers, and we're going to dive into dissecting what we think the fishing is going to be like for that. But it's sure shaping up to be a really fun event, but a more fun event than just the fish. This is shaping up to be an emotional event. And I think that's what the one thing that comes with Angler of the Year, more so than a win, might be just the overall emotion, because it takes longer to get to the crest.
Absolutely. And, you know, Robert, I think if he's spot on, if these top 3 make the top 10, it will absolutely 100%, because of the point spread, it will go down to the last day and the last person that weighs in.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So my question, the first thing that just popped in my head is, unlike other years, we're not seeing, I'm looking at the one column here with number of fish caught each day during the entire season. And normally that is much more prevalent in our Angler of the Year race. And this year it's a little discombobulated. Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that, because, you know, normally there's 2 kind of things that happen when an Angler of the Year wins. And I'm going to share this again. There's 2 kind of things that happen.
I just really wanted to use the word discombobulated.
Yeah, right. That's like the most syllables you've ever said on one of our podcasts ever. The biggest multi-syllabic word you've ever used. So yeah, you're right. So we've all, out of a possible, in 3 events, you can weigh 10 fish in 2-day tournaments. So 30 possible fish can be weighed in the first 3 events. The most anyone has caught and weighed in, I shouldn't say caught, is weighed in, is 26. And we've had years where normally the Angler of the Year will catch 40 or close to it. It hasn't happened every time, but almost every time it's happened. And the other one is, so here we are at 26 out of 30, 25 out of 30. So it's no joke that the guys in the running are catching the most or weighing the most fish on tour. That's no joke. That's just, you can't go against those stats. And then if you look a little further, along with that, number of checks. This is the number of checks that the Angler of the Year, the eventual AOY, has cashed in the 4-tournament season. 5 out of the 7 times the Angler of the Year has cashed a check in all 4 events. And they are usually the only ones. There was only one exception. David Anderson took 2nd Angler of the Year. He also cashed 4 checks, but he lost to, I think, Blosser actually, or Stahusky. Maybe it was Blosser in 17. He lost to him. So that's the only, if you cash 4 checks in a year, you've got a really, really good chance at winning Angler of the Year. And that goes along with catching limits of fish per day. And I failed to mention this stat too. We talked about a Chip offline. If you were to take the average weight from each of the first 3 qualifiers, average weight of a fish caught in a National Walleye Tour event, and multiply that by 10 fish in each event, that would translate to, you'd be leading Angler of the Year by 1 point right now, and you would have cashed a check in all 3 events.
Okay, well, hold on now. Say that, run that by me again, so I completely understand that.
After the only bad thing about this stat is you don't know the average weight until after the event.
Okay,
so
correct.
You catch a certain amount of fish that have a certain amount of weight. You get an average weight of the fish caught in each event. If you catch 10 fish at that event and put yourself on the list and see 10 fish of the 3.3 pound average, I would have finished here. And then the next tournament, the 4 pound average, 40 pounds, I would have finished here. And then 3 pounds, I would have finished here.
Okay.
If you were to add up those points, you'd be leading Angler of the Year by 1 point. You'd be ahead of Corey Springer by 1 point, and you would have cashed 3 checks in 3 events, just by catching a limit of the average weight of that fish, of that event, in each of the 3 qualifiers leading up to this tournament.
That's an amazing statistic. I mean, it really does change how you look at tournament fishing, preparing for tournaments and fishing tournaments with a completely different objective, which is basically what Robert was getting at in the front end of this interview, was that him versus hitting home runs versus trying to hit singles. Just hit the ball.
Just hit the ball. And that's what I'm saying. Imagine if any one of these guys had actually weighed in 30 fish. They'd probably be leading the Angler of the Year by 30 points. Just by 5. Corey's got 5 less than he could have, right?
Yeah.
Cole has 4 less. So if any of these guys had 30, there's a pretty good chance. Now, granted, there's some guys that might say, well, if I just catch a limit, it doesn't mean I'm going to do well. No, you're right. If you catch a limit of 1.5 pounders, it's probably not going to mean much. But when you've got either culling in Michigan, like they could have, you've got 8 fish to work with in Sakakawea and weigh 5, catching a limit is a big deal if you equate it to a long-term statistical average. My friends are probably going to be pinging my phone after they see this for me to actually be letting the cat out of the bag for that. But it's a stat that I've been paying attention for a long time. And if I would have told you, if you just go catch a 3-pound average at the Sioux, a 4-pound average at Green Bay, and a 3-pound average at Sakakawea, you'd have told me I was crazy. It's not going to be worth anything. And you'd have 3 checks and you'd be leading the Angler of the Year going to the championship. And that's what's crazy.
Yeah, but it's one thing to say it, okay? It's a whole other thing to do it. I've been around tournament anglers a long time in my career, and the best tournament anglers I know don't belly up to shoot par, okay? Sure. They're out there to win every single event, every single day of every event, and every fish of an entire limit. So they're not – second isn't even a thought process.
No, but guess what? When there's 120 average anglers per NWT tournament, after day 1, you better change your mindset and start thinking long term. After day 1 of the first day of the first event of the year, if you're in 100th place and you need to get to 25th, you better figure out how to do that, because you're probably not going to win, right? So you probably need to looking at, where am I going to be? What kind of weight do I need to at least get myself still in the conversation for AOY? Because Robert mentioned it. After that first day of the first event, you're thinking about it. Well, if you blow yourself out of the water after day 1 and you just say, screw it, day 2, I'm just going to stay away from them, and I don't know what I'm going to go do. And you don't really, you don't put your heart and soul into it, you're done. But there is a time and a place per tournament to think about long-term averages. There is.
I've never liked the tournament, or when people make comment that I didn't have anything to fish for today. And they say that a lot on day 2. I went out there with nothing to fish for. Nothing could be further from the truth in reality. You got everything to fish for, especially if you're planning on doing this for long term, right?
Absolutely. Tom Kimos, he had a 48th place finish. It's the lowest anyone's ever finished out of 4 seasons to win Angler of the Year. So he had a 48. He probably thought, I'm out. And he still won it. He still won it because depending on where we go, where the tournaments are, you could have a lot of local snipers that push a lot of the full-time guys out of the top 50. And now your points total goes down for the season. So, yeah, there's always a different mindset that needs to be addressed in each day of every event throughout the year. Not everybody can win the tournament after day 1. They all can win the tournament before day 1 takeoff, but not after day 1. They can't do it. So you better figure out a way to change your mindset about, what do I need to do now long term to keep myself in the running, to give myself a shot still at AOY for one, and then momentum maybe for the next event and cashing a check and so on.
All right. Well, I think let's clear this thing off here and just summarize this event, because I'm really looking forward to this event more so now that we've picked apart this Angler of the Year race, because now we've got the race within the race. We've got the tournament within the tournament. We got all these little side deals going on, and we've got some insight. It's going to be a fantastic event. I can't wait to see what our numbers actually are like heading into this event, to find out how many places we're going to have to play with, because that actually is going to come into play for this Angler of the Year race.
It will. And, I don't want to take anything away from the past races, the past 7 years. especially last year. Keenan to come from 20 points down to beat Brett King, who was leading going into the final championship, who was fighting for a second in a row. No one had ever won 2 in a row, and he was fighting for it. So that was a great fight. That was a great battle. Top names of the sport fishing for the AOY championship. This year, you've got the most decorated National Walleye Tour angler leading the AOY race. He's won 5 events. He's never finished lower than 10th, and never out of the top 10 in an AOY. He averages 5th place in the AOY, the most consistent angler across 31 events and leading. You've got Dave Kolb, who has got probably more success than anyone in the top 10 on Lake Erie. I would say he does, absolutely. And then you've got John Hoyer, one of the hottest anglers on the planet over his last 6 events, just, seems to always be in the discussion at the end of the day, at the end of the weigh-in with a chance. So, and he's fighting for an angler of the year. He's good friends with Sprangle. He'd love nothing more than to knock him off. And I know Corey's been talking about winning AOY forever, so I can't imagine what he's feeling before he gets in this as well. So you're right. That story within the story, and I hope and pray to God that all 3 of those guys do make the top 10, because it will be absolutely a nail-biting, must-see TV. Everybody's got to tune in to watch that final day weigh-in. Absolutely.
Well, the best thing about the championship, it's a 3-day event. Like I said, we got 3 boats to give away, and the second day is going to be exciting because we're going to find out who's going to end up in the top 10.
Yeah, well, and you never know, because if those 3 guys stumble a little bit, 4, 5, and 6, they're doing well, and Beffabaugh and Geike and Schaefer all of a sudden are in the top 10. And now there's even more converse. There's 6 guys that could potentially win this thing going into the last day, because depending on where they finish in the top 10, if first, second, third finish in the next 15 to 25 or 30, it's going to be, no one's going to know this thing till the very end. But right after day 2, it's going to absolutely shape up to be just an incredible finish. So I encourage everyone to follow along and watch for your updates. And, I don't know when the dates are of the tournament, but we'll get into that in the next podcast as we preview the next one. But yeah, I'm getting fired up just, thinking about it. It's going to be awesome.
You and me, John Balla, thank you so much for today. And be sure to tune in. Now you've listened to this one, make sure you tune in to the Lake Erie preview podcast coming up here shortly. Of course, it's all listed on chipleer.com. Thank you so much, John. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.
See you, Chip.